I will still give you a minute to join us, and then we will start our webinar today. So nice. Amount of participants hasn't changed for some time already. That's why we can start already. So today we have our first webinar for JobRouter users, and this one is about JobRouter itself, about our plans, updates, and roadmap for our solution. So my name is Antonia Marques. If you still don't know me, I'm partner manager and I will be your moderator for today. And our agenda will be pretty straightforward for today. So first of all, first speaker will be Axel Ensinger, our co-CEO, and he will speak about JobRouter itself, about strategic orientation of JobRouter as company. And then Romy and Stefan, our product managers, and will tell about JobRouter as a platform, about updates and roadmap. So actually, that's all from my side at the moment. And Axel, you can take over. I believe I will need to stop sharing my slides, so you can do that and tell us about strategic plans of JobRouter.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Antonia, and a very warm welcome from my side to all participants in today's webinar. I'm going to share my screen so that all of you can see everything. So, here we go. Fine. Okay. So, yeah, I'd like to speak a little bit about JobRouter itself, about the company. Yeah, you know that a lot of changes have been done in the last year for our company. And I guess that all of you have seen that in the newsletters, in our LinkedIn channels, and all of our communication that we have sent out. And yeah, so we're going to start with a strategic orientation of JobRouter so that we really know how will the JobRouter of the future of JobRouter look like for you and for all of us together. Yeah, as Antonia just said, my name is Axel Ensinger, co-CEO and responsible for product and technology at JobRouter. I'm within the company now for more than 20 years. And yeah, still happy to be here today to tell you about the future of JobRouter. So how do we start? We make a short look back into the past. So actually, I think almost around the year 2003. And actually in this year, this was the birthday of the JobRouter, to that time workflow management solution. So we've initiated that software with the idea of actually just creating some forms, sending them around through the company to the responsible persons, typically for approval processes. So it was actually only thought for workflow management. Later on, we have extended it with document management inside, with data management. And step by step, we created a whole digitization solution and low-code process automation solution out of JobRouter. So that was actually, I would say, the first 20 years of what we did. And afterwards, actually 18 months ago, we added two other products to our solution suite. So it was on the one hand, the Camellia with an e-learning solution, and on the other hand, SUCAD with a solution SUCAD One, which is made for process documentation and process modeling. And with that step, actually, we have enriched the JobRouter portfolio from a partner-based customer base with about 2,000 and more than 2,000 customers, and added for that a lot of direct customers for JobRouter as well to learn more about the end users and to provide a solution to both of these, yeah, to the SUCAT customers and as well to JobRouter customers. So that was the first step. And on the next slide, I can show you what was the main idea of that. So the main idea, and I think I told it somewhere last year also in a webinar, but it's important to tell this again. Yeah? So first of all, we said, okay, there are different areas of digitization that we want to cover. Not only the part of there is a digital process that we want to build in our solution, no, but about the whole story of getting to or becoming a digital company. Yeah? From the first step of looking at your processes, documenting your process, optimizing this, talk about this, and then create your digitization strategy about your processes. Then create the actual solutions with JobRouter, and of course the execution and the optimization for the future purposes. And to handle all of that, we created a solution portfolio now containing JobRouter, SUCAT, and also the yellow software that helps you on this all of these parts of your journey. Yeah? So beginning with the process analysis that you see here, process visualization. So both is something that we also do in the SUCAT One software, the process documentation as well. But then for all the process automation part, we still use JobRouter, of course, and this is where you are here today to learn more about the future of this part of our solution portfolio. And by the end, also the process training to get all the information about your processes in your company out to your employees. And the major point for us here is not only focusing on the processes that you can automate, but also focusing on everything which is process-based in your company, which is today really important because we see at our customers that we need to document our processes as we have a high new people coming in, people leaving the company. Yeah? So you really have to get to ensure that all of your staff is trained in all the things that they need to do in your company, and to really have documented processes in there. And this is what we do with the SUCAT One software. And I have to say that in the last, especially in the last 12 months, we made really progress by selling JobRouter to a lot of these customers out there, of the SUCAT One customers that had already the documentation part, but they were missing the automation part behind. And the other way around, we did it as well. So we have also JobRouter customers who really understood that they also have to think about all the other processes in their company to document them and have it together in one system with the JobRouter. So this is the first step that we took, and there was a lot of things that we had to be done for that in the last year. But there was another thing happening actually in November, and I guess that most of you, maybe not all, have also heard about that. Yeah? Because to make one step further in the story of JobRouter and the story of the JobRouter group now, there is a new player that comes into the game. And this player is called Aptean. And Aptean, and I will tell you about Aptean on the next slide a little bit more, what they are doing. Aptean, just to know that, is a US-based company, and they have acquired JobRouter in end of November last year. So now the whole JobRouter group is belonging to Aptean. But we are still acting as what we are, as the JobRouter group, with our products, with our naming, with our branding. So this won't change, but we are in this big network of a really, really large company. And I give you a short overview about what Aptean actually is. And if you look at this, you see that Aptean is a global provider for industry-specific software solutions. This means mostly these are ERP solutions, so enterprise resource planning software. And I think you know it probably, maybe from your own projects that you have done with JobRouter, maybe from projects that you have done for other companies that are using JobRouter, that in many, many cases, we are connecting not only to document management solutions that I mentioned before, but especially to ERP solutions. Because we know this typical use case of accounts payable, purchase request process, for example, they are typically not processes that you implement in JobRouter, and they are alone standing and just will be processed in JobRouter. They are always integrated into the ERP world and into the ERP systems that customer has already in his company. Yeah, and that means for us, this is a huge chance because Aptean has more than 60 systems out in the market, and it's getting more and more. And most of them are ERP solutions. And of course, within the next years, we will, together with Aptean, build adapters for all of these different solutions to get out and build also use cases for these customers and an easy access for workflow management within their ERP solutions. The other way around, of course, we can offer to our customers access to these ERP applications, which is not the main purpose here. We want to sell JobRouter and our JobRouter product groups like Sugat One, but it is a new market that is created for all of us. Yeah, some numbers here maybe. Aptean has more than 10,000 or almost 15,000 customers. So this is a huge base, and the decision has made together with the Aptean CEO, TVN, that we will try to sell JobRouter through the cloud to all of these customers and give them access to the JobRouter process management solutions, which is also a huge step for us all together. Yeah. Then we can tell that the turnover of Aptean is around $700 million. So a little bit more than JobRouter was before. So we're belonging now to a much bigger group with 3,500 plus employees. And I have to say that this number is changing every month, actually, as Aptean is a highly acquisitive company that makes acquisitions around 10 or 12 times a year, all in the space of medium-sized to big companies, and all of them are mostly ERP solutions or things that you can adopt to ERP solutions. And this is the base actually for the future growth of our company. So one thing that is really important, Aptean has a clear focus on 5 sectors. You see them here in the middle. It's food and beverages, clothing and lifestyle, industrial manufacturing, process manufacturing, and biotechnology and health. So we, as a JobRouter, we always have customers from all of these areas, mostly in industrial manufacturing. This is probably the most important for us. But these are the big pillars that Aptean has. And they have solutions, you see them on the right side, like ERP, manufacturing execution systems, transportation management systems, product life management system, and enterprise asset management. So all of this is provided by Aptean. And there is one system which is connected then in the future to all of these different software systems, and that's JobRouter. So JobRouter is the process automation platform for Aptean, for all the customers, for all the products. And besides that, we will keep growing our existing market with our existing customers and with our existing partners with the same brand that we had before with JobRouter. So we'll have these two worlds doing the same thing that we did before, but also being highly active in this Aptean customer world to actually sell and bring JobRouter to all of these customers. Here, just a short overview, and we'll send it afterwards, of course, in the slides that you have a look at this. This is the portfolio that we have with Aptean now. And on the left side, you will see the intelligent process management. This is what JobRouter will bring into the Aptean solution portfolio. Well, then I would like to have only a short point and look into the most important development initiatives that we have this year. I don't will dig deep because actually Romy and Stefan, they have so much many things that they can talk about, and they will go deeper inside. But I will only give you a high-level idea of what is really important for JobRouter to invest in the next month. So, and what we do see here is, first of all, yes, there is a point of Aptean integration work. That means that, of course, we do things that we bring JobRouter into the cloud of Aptean. And I can say that the Aptean cloud team has more than 100 people working worldwide with follow the sun principle to provide a really, really good cloud to the customers. We integrate JobRouter into this world. And I also say that for this, we create a new team and already did it besides our existing JobRouter development team. Because, of course, we want to focus on our own customers and our partners and the things that we have on the roadmap. And enrich our team, enhance our team with people that can help us to integrate into the app team world. The second part is cloud. Yeah? Of course, cloud is always an important part for us, and we invested in the last years heavily into cloud. I think you've seen it in several webinars and information that we have created a containerized version of JobRouter, which is more scalable than before. It's with much more automated processes behind. And of course, this version in the cloud will also be available now for in the app team world, but it also helps us for providing JobRouter out of the cloud for you guys out there. And we have the next steps going on with the cloud this year. Also, Stefan and Romy will tell you a little bit about this, what is new in JobRouter and helps you letting JobRouter be executed in the cloud. Then we have a big topic, artificial intelligence. And this is also one point that was so interesting for us actually to get together with AppTeam, because AppTeam has an AI-first philosophy. And this is something that is really something that TVN, so the CEO of AppTeam, has made a strategic decision for his company, for AppTeam, that everything is AI and that they heavily invest in AI. So they have talents there. They build a lot of solutions around that. And this is something where we really can profit from, and where the JobRouter product will profit from, because together we will build much more AI functionality inside of JobRouter. Today we only have it for document recognition integrated, but now in the future, step by step, we will enroll much more functionality inside of JobRouter. Then there's the other part, user experience, which is also important, of course. So the renewal of our design, of the forms designer, all of that stuff is important. Also, the performance. And the last point is the SUCAT integration. We also do step-by-step small things to integrate the SUCAT 1 software into the JobRouter software, and let them work together, or bring processes from one hand, so from the SUCAT software into the JobRouter world, or the other way around, to look at document workflows in SUCAT and then directly jump into the workflows to start them out in JobRouter. So that's a high-level overview. I have some pictures here for you to see how that looks like. So for the AppTeam integration, and this is a product which is called App Central. And App Central is the cloud ERP solution of AppTeam. Yeah, so in this Cloud Central, you will find all new products that AppTeam will create. There are already some in there, some ERP solutions, CRM solutions, and probably in next month, JobRouter will also be available in there. And as I said, this is done with the help of the AppTeam development and product team. And we are building step-by-step integrations to these different kind of solutions that we have out there. Maybe one thing that I have to mention here, and this is also very important, we also integrated AppTeam's AI assistant, which is an AI assistant that covers all the different functionalities from all these systems, and will in the future then also be able to interact with JobRouter. Not quite yet, but probably within, I would say, maybe in the next half or the next year, we should be able also to use this AppTeam AI assistant for the customers who are in the AppTeam App Central cloud. Yeah, for the cloud itself, I mentioned it already, conversion to container has been done. We have a new price model. We have improvement made for the use of resources, especially by using Linux for our services in the backend. We had support from AppTeam, and we have now support from the AppTeam cloud team. And we have many pitfalls that we saw in the past we have solved. And this is something I would like to mention here, because for me, it's so important that you really learn that it is possible to use JobRouter in the cloud successfully. Because I hear so many times something like, oh, there is something that doesn't work today, maybe already. How do I do the user synchronization, for example? So many questions. And a lot of these questions are already solved by our development and product team. And if you look at this, I have some questions here. Single sign-on. Yeah, this is the question that always comes up. How do I do this? Do I have to create my users all alone in the cloud? And the next one is then, okay, if I have single sign-on, how do I synchronize the users? How do I do that without maybe using a VPN connection? How do I access local data sources? Where do I find specific documentation about the cloud? Do you have the contracts for this if I get all my business into the JobRouter cloud? What about the costs? What about accessing the JobRouter database? Because I always look at this and I have to work. Maybe I create tables. I want to do some queries on it. Onboarding time, how long does it take to get my system in the cloud? Is there an access to a local file system? And how do I monitor all of that? And how do I have access maybe to log files and so on? So these are all questions that typically come up. And I can tell you that most of these questions are already answered. So single sign-on, you can use it already. We have it integrated in our cloud today. And you can use it with Azure AD, Active Directories or Entra ID. So this is not anything that should stop you from getting into the cloud. User synchronization, also something that comes within the next versions of JobRouter. I think probably Stefan and Romy will tell you something about that. Access to local data sources. This is something that we already have in the cloud available for our customers. It was more in a kind of beta version, so we rolled it only to a few customers, but now it's also available for all of you. So you have a local component that you can access your local databases directly out of the cloud to have a live queries into your ERP solution, CRM solution, whatever you have locally, and you still can use JobRouter out of the cloud without any kind of installation. For the documentation, I can really recommend you going into the JobRouter portal, looking into the documentation area. We have FAQs, we have a white paper about the cloud. We can send you also the contract examples for how it looks like. So there's everything that you need to run it in a cloud. And I don't want to show you the new price model because you know it already. We released that for 2 years ago, which really covers the cloud. And there's a much cheaper cloud offering now available for you. So access to the JobRouter database is available via OpenVPN. Onboarding time, we are currently need about 1 or 2 days to get a new customer in the cloud. So it's really, really fast. And access to local file system. Also, this is planned also for the remote client. Not available yet, I have to say, but there's something on the roadmap. And also something we're working in this year, in 2025, is giving you access to the log files of JobRouter in the cloud. So you will be able to do the first look into JobRouter. If there is any kind of problems, you will find it in a monitor that we will provide to you to see all of that and have a first level support on your own if needed. Okay, user experience. I think you will hear more about that later, especially the forms layout, the forms designer, the performance optimization for the users that we did in the last month. So a lot of things had been changed here. So this is one of the major topics. And AI integration. This is actually things where I think I mentioned it last year. We see 2 big areas. One is the support for the process designers, but the other one, and the really interesting part, is also the support for the users by accessing all the data, all the processes, all the documents in JobRouter just through the AI assistant. This is something we are working on, but it's really not to be released now within the next month. So we have this we have a lot of ideas there. We already work in prototypes. But the strategy is clear. Step by step, we will get more AI functionality now into the JobRouter platform and enrich the solution for you out there. Yeah, and last but not least, if you are using Sukat 1, and I know some of you maybe already, some of you are using it, at least maybe in a trial version. One thing that now will be implemented in Sukat 1 software is that if you go into Sukat, you have a display of your process map. There is an extra element that lets you start workflows out of JobRouter. So if you have a documented workflow in there, you click in there and you will automatically get to the start steps of JobRouter and initiate that workflow. That means all of employees have all the information of the processes, but they also can execute it right away without having access maybe before to JobRouter. This is what's the next step. So I think that was just a short overview about the areas that we have. I think important for you is only to see what are the things that we are working on a high level. And it's important to know that together with App Team, we have the base for future growth of the company, or future growth for our products. And with all the customers that we also now get, in addition to the more than 2,000 customers that we have, we get more power to more invest in the product and in the future of JobRouter. And I hope that this will bring a lot of, and it will bring a lot of new functionality and possibilities for you out there to make really good things with the JobRouter platform, enrich your business, and be successful and scale with the JobRouter solution portfolio. Yeah, that's just my few words in the beginning of this webinar. I think we will directly jump deeper inside, but I hand over back to Antonina. And if there are any questions, Antonina, let me know if you've seen something in the chat that came up where I should answer these questions.
Yeah, thank you very much, Axel. I haven't seen any questions yet in the chat, but information to all participants, you can still do that. You can still leave some questions. We can answer those also after the webinar, so we encourage you to do that. So thank you very much once again, and now I believe we can go to Romy and Stefan. They will tell us more about the product itself.
All right, thank you very much, Antonina. Thank you very much, Axel, for your first topic of today. So I will share my screen and start our part. You should now see my screen. Yeah, that looks good. Thank you. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for joining us today, depending on which part of the world you're joining today. It's a pleasure for Romy and me to tell you today a little bit about the product, what happened in the past 12 months since our release 1.5 weeks ago. And you'll learn today something a little bit about the development of modern forms, some parts we did about the redesign in JobRouter, and then Romy will take over talking a little bit about our newest integration with PyroShift. That was not intended, I'm sorry. After that, she will talk a little bit about JobRouter e-invoicing, and it's actually the biggest block, probably the technology part today, where she will dive into the container part and so on. But I won't spoil too much. Let's get you surprised, and we'll first talk a little bit about my part. So you'll have to deal with me for the next couple of minutes, but I'll try to also show you a little bit of something in the Process Designer in life. But first, to give you the latest release information, we clicked on the button. Something automatically switches to the next slide. That's all right. We clicked on the button 1.5 weeks ago on the 28th of March, where we released this year's LTS version, 2025.1. You will find that in our support portal as a download, of course. The beta was already released nearly a month earlier than that. And thank you to all the testers. Thank you to the feedback we received to improve the version before we released it as a stable version in the end of last month. If you're using a small business cloud, or AKA our shared cloud, the test environment will get an update to 2025.1 on April 19, and the shared cloud production system gets its update 1 month later. If you're using an individual cloud environment, you can reach out to our cloud staff or support team if you want to update and when you want to update, and they will then schedule your system. For our next release this year, we will go with 2 releases only this year instead of 4 we had previous year. The second version will get released on September 26, basically half a year later than the first version. It might gonna be an LTS version. That's estimated for now. This might change. It depends what kind of features will dive in that version, and this gets you will get notified when if it's an LTS version or an STS version, at the latest when we release the beta version on August 29. And regarding the release itself, we also have some news about this. We will launch a new software downloads overview on the support portal, on the partners portal. It is gonna be a widget which will get put on your dashboard automatically in the next couple of days. And there you can see it should be a better overview on the kind of version you're downloading, if it's an LTS version or an STS version. Automatically, when you load the widget, it's always going to be the latest selected on top. But of course, you can select also one of the past versions, and the related downloads at the bottom will get filtered automatically. Also, what you're going to see in this overview are important notices related to that exact version. So for example, for 2025.1, we require a PHP update on 8.3. Don't worry, you can update to PHP 8.3 if you're on 2024.1, but you have to go on 2024.1.19 to switch to PHP, and then you can update to 2025.1. You can also view the patch notes from this panel and also jump into the release notes of that exact version. If you, for example, switch the version you want to download, the patch notes get adapted, of course, and down below you can download all the components related to that patch or version. Further down below in the bottom, you can also search for optional downloads. So for example, there we have some documentation packages you can download from here, or I think we have some REST API examples. We still need to do some refinement on some translations. As you could see, for example, this is still German and not English, so that's some minor changes. So the widget will be available in the next couple of days, but we are working on that. All right. If you still want to go and download old releases like 5.x, I hope you don't need to, but might be possible. You will get a link to our old download overviews page where you still can download that version. In my personal opinion, the best feature of this widget is the search function. So for example, if you are marked or linked with a bug or an issue number from our system, let's say that number I just typed in, 16835, the versions get filtered automatically to that version where the fix is implemented. So there you can see in here, there's the bug which got fixed. If it doesn't show up, of course, if no version shows up, of course, then the bug is not fixed. But there you can see in which version a bug got fixed. All right, let's switch back to the presentation itself. You can look forward to that widget in the next couple of days in the JobRouter support portal. Let's jump into the new features we implemented in the last 12 months since 2024.1. It's also kind of a summary of the last STS releases we did last year. So don't be surprised if you already heard some of them. For 2025, new elements will be available compared to 2024.1, which is the iframe, a link element, and an integer element. And of course, the best or the most important element of those four is the subtables, right? Very important core feature of forms, which are available with that version. Also, we have a JavaScript API implementations that are matching the current progress usually, right? And if you're not sure what kind of JavaScript API functions are available in the modern forms, we have an overview in our JavaScript API documentation. A link is in the slides, so you can click on that when you download or when you receive the slides. We release basically new functions in every release, usually related to the features we implement, but there might be other features which are not related to a specific element, for example. I'll give you the JRexecute dialog function, for example. That is available since 2024.2, for example. So we are trying to match the modern forms function possibilities to the classic ones. Also, we are working on a JavaScript API version 2. Version 1 will be supported, of course, still in the modern forms, but the version 2 should help you work with the JavaScript API in a more modern way, object-based, where you just fetch a specific element, for example, and dot property, you can set or get the value, for example. So let's say you want to fetch a specific value of an element, you would say get element dot value, and then you get the value of that specific element. All right, but more details will come up in the next couple of months where you can actually see a little bit more how it works. For now, you can still use the classic version of the JavaScript API and you're good to go. Also, we implemented a few validation element options, which are important for existing elements. Like, for example, for the integer and decimal element, we implemented a maximum and minimum value. For the text box and text array, we have maximum and minimum length. And for the checkbox, that's a tongue breaker, unchecked and unchecked events, which are important for fetching those events. All right. Also, what we are trying to achieve with the modern forms is basically a feeling of one workspace. So if you're creating a form in the past or in the classic designer, you need to go to another configuration menu, for example, to create a list, to create a process table field. Not necessarily, I know, but not all options were available through the designer itself. But usually you have to jump back and forth through different configuration menus to get all the assets ready to use in your actual form. So what we want to achieve, and I will show you in a second how it works, by creating a process table field, you will stay in the designer, in the element options, for example, and create a process table field, or you can create a translation later on. It should simplify the handling and creating a form and its necessary assets to guide you during the process design and help you get faster. And I guess it's enough talking. I am eager to show you how it actually looks like. So for today, I have brought you a demonstration about the new element itself. Since it's a link, iframe, number element, and the subtable, we'll focus on those. It's not a real use case. It's just a show off of the elements we implemented so far. So there's a link. If I click on it, those are the release notes. It's a German link itself still, but you will jump into a new tab where you get redirected to the link behind that link. Here we have a number field, which when I type something else in, it tells me that the input is incorrect. So we implemented also, of course, the validation options for that element with the minimum value and maximum value. So this works right away. And on the left-hand side, you can see the iframe integration, where I simply put in the release notes as well for 2025.1. No borders in there, and we're good to go. You just need to make sure that the website you want to include as an iframe allows to get included via iframe, because, for example, if you type in google.com, this won't be allowed by Google itself, and you need to work around with that. But just make sure that the content you want to display is eligible to display as in that way. And last but not least, our subtable, where you have different elements available basically the same ones you have in the usual form, like an integer field, a date field, a drop-down element, a decimal field, file upload, and so on. Everything is available, and you still design those subtables in the classic design, but we are converting them to the modern design when loading the form itself. And a neat function of this element is also a mobile view. So for example, if I have less space available to display everything horizontal, it will switch to a vertical view of the subtable. So you can work with the subtable on a mobile device, for example, or a tablet, doesn't matter. You can also use and add and copy rows as you might know it. And for example, another nice feature we have for the users is, let me remove those rows first, is multi-sort. So sorting was available before that. If activated, and for example, if you sort that subtable, there's a multi-sort available. You can sort over multiple columns if necessary, and there you can work a little bit better with subtables. A few more features are planned for the futures, like for example, variable element or column width, where the user is able to set the size of its columns to work on its own. You should also be able to show or hide specific columns, which is also a future feature we are developing right now. And that's for now for the subtables, and actually for the live demo for myself. And I'll switch back to the presentation. I have one last point for my part of the presentation. We also redesigned some outgoing emails. The redesign of those emails is already implemented somewhere in 2023 version. It's already in the system or in the platform quite some time. What we did in one of the past STS versions is the new layout is applied for emails for the mail system activity. So if you're using the mail system activity to send out emails, those emails get their new layout with 2024.3 it was, I guess, but also, of course, with 2025.1. It has a specialty implemented in that case because we know some of you might have already implemented your own design with HTML and so on, and your own stylings, and we don't want to interfere with those. So you're able to deactivate the new design or the new layout for this outgoing mail system activity with input parameter. It's a checkbox you can activate. So you're good to go. All right. That's so far from my part. I will now hand over to Romy. Thank you very much for your attention so far, and have fun with features Romy is presenting you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. We can stop. Yeah, perfect. Stop your screen sharing. Then I will choose screen number 2. That should be this one. And I will share my presentation. Of course, that wasn't the right version. This one. Okay. So I also brought a couple of topics for you for today, for 25.1, and also looking back at some 24.x STS versions that you may have missed if you're on the LTS track. So first I would like to start with is a kind of new module or service that we introduced last year called JobMine, powered by Parashift. This is a service for AI-based extraction of data from any document class. At least let's say like hundreds of document classes. Maybe not all of them that are available worldwide, but many document classes. using the ParaShift platform. And ParaShift is a provider for intelligent document processing from Switzerland. And we met them last year for the first time, and we started a cooperation with them. And in October, I think it was, we first published our new service called JobMind, powered by ParaShift. It's part of the JobMind family, which was already dealing with document extraction. And we first published it last year. I think we even merged it back into older JobRouter versions like 23.1, 4.1, 4.3, whatever was current at that date, just to give you the opportunity to use it, to work with it. And our module itself, it includes system activity that you can just plug into your workflow. So you can use that to upload any kind of document to ParaShift and extract the data into JobRouter to use it in your workflow. So as all the other system activities we have, it basically behaves the same. We have some extra functions also included because ParaShift itself, it doesn't specialize in invoices. ParaShift supports multiple document classes. That's even their USP, that they are not specialized in anything. They have a wide range of document classes that they support, that they can extract the data from. But we know for our use cases, especially in JobRouter, in your workflows like invoice recognition, invoice approval and such, you need some invoice-specific functions, which we decided to build into this module ourselves. One of them is a vendor number recognition function. As you know, the vendor number is usually not part of the invoice that you get. It's just something you need if you want to book your invoice later in your systems. So JobRouter takes care of that based on the vendor and recipient, not just vendor and recipient data extracted from the document. We can find the numbers for you so that you can use them in your workflow. Also, what we have included is support for JobMind Bau. It's a mostly used by Germans, a module for construction invoices specifically. They're a very specific type of invoice used in Germany. We have a module for this where you can open this document in a viewer and you can just, make some changes to the invoice. Say, no, I don't want to pay all of it. I just want to pay half. And yeah, you can play with that a bit. It's called JobMind Bau. And when we extract this data from ParaShift, we also create everything that's necessary for JobMind Bau itself. So those are the functions we initially started with last year in October. And specifically now for 25.1, what we have integrated is a new function for document classification. So as I mentioned, ParaShift supports, I think on the website it says like 400 different document classes. So could be invoices, could be delivery notes, but also like vehicle registrations, communication documents. So lots of different document classes. You can even create your own if you have a specific type of document that you want to extract data from. And before we had that classification function, you had to know what kind of document you were getting in order to handle it in JobRouter. So if you had an invoice approval process and you were sending documents to ParaShift to extract the invoice data, it actually had to be an invoice. So you had to know it's an invoice. You had to do the sorting beforehand on the scanner with your email account. So you had to know you're getting invoices in order to send them to ParaShift, to tell ParaShift it's an invoice, please extract the invoice data. But ParaShift actually has a function for document classification. So you can send it any kind of document class, if it's known to ParaShift at least. It will then find out what's the most likely document class, and it can give you that information. So to JobRouter, you can upload a document like from an unsorted incoming mail workflow. You can just upload the document to ParaShift, and then ParaShift can tell you it's an invoice, and then in JobRouter you can start the invoice approval process. Or it's a vehicle registration, you can start whatever workflow that fits in, or you can just send it into an archive to store that document. So that's the option you now have with the document classification function. It's part of the same system activity that we had before, which now gives you the option to extract the document class, to validate the document class, and to use it in your workflow, which means that especially the manual pre-sorting that you had to do at your scanner, just to scan each individual document, say this is an invoice, this is this, this is this. That's no longer necessary because JobRouter can take that part of you. Can take over that kind of work for you. So that's a new function in 25.1. Many more will come because ParaShift has a lot of features. Also some features they are just implementing for us. So for the next couple of months, I think for the rest of the year, you can look forward to many more features that we will add to this specific module. A live demo will not be done today because there's another webinar tomorrow that I'm, in case you haven't registered for this yet, I invite you to join. I think there's a couple of, the webinar tomorrow is called How Process Automation Works, Different Use Cases in Industries. And one of the use cases, I think the last one of the day, you will see me again, and I will tell you a bit about ParaShift. I will give you a live demo, a more exact live demo of what's possible. So since we are maybe a bit short on time today, because I have more things to tell you, I will move that live demo for tomorrow, inviting you to join. Next thing on my list, it's also about invoices, e-invoices specifically. It's a module called JobRouter e-invoice, formerly known as JobPferd, which nobody outside of the German area really understood. It was the name was based on the first type of electronic invoice this module was able to handle. It's a format called Zugpferd. It's an abbreviation that stands for something in Germany, and that's the first thing that we supported. That's why we named the module JobPferd. But since then, I think we had this for like 10 years. Since then, a lot of functions have been added, and it's not just doing Zugpferd anymore. It's doing actually more formats as well. So that's why last year we decided to actually give it a new name to reflect the new set of functions that this activity, this module actually supports. So we renamed it last year. If you update and you think where's my JobPferd activity, it's still there, just called differently. Last year we added some supports to this module, or actually we updated supports. We have different formats that we currently support. One is Zugpferd, or Factor X is, I think, the French version, and X-Rechnung or X-Invoice, which is another German format. They publish new versions, I think, every 6 months or so. Of course, we are trying to keep up to date. So we are currently on the newest version that are supported for those two, which is X-Rechnung 3.0.1 and Zugpferd 2.3.0. It's almost as bad as the JobRouter version names. So those are supported. Those are minor updates, and also what we introduced last year specifically for X-Rechnung, because X-Rechnung, or Rechnung stands for invoice, for those of you who don't speak German. X-Invoice, it's an electronic invoice format, which is in XML. It's not a PDF with an XML like the other ones. It's actually a raw XML file. And of course, it's a legal invoice. You can process it, you can extract the data, no problem. You can display the data in JobRouter in your form. What you can't display to your typical accounting people is the XML file, because nobody wants to look at an XML file, especially the accounting people or just people who are approving the invoice. They want to see a PDF. They want to see an image of something. And luckily, the working group, I think, that defines the standard for X-Rechnung, they also define, or they supply a kind of transformation library that is able to render that XML into a PDF file. It has a very specific format. As you can see from the screenshot, it's only available in German, but X-Rechnung is a German standard, so I think that's okay. And JobRouter is using this to to basically create a PDF based on that XML invoice. So in that function where you can extract the data from that XML invoice, you can also say, yes, I want a PDF to be created. And you can then use that PDF to display it to the user when you do your approval workflow. You can archive it. Of course, you have to archive it, including the actual XML, because that's still the legal invoice that you have to store. But you can use that PDF to show it to people so that they don't have to look at this machine-readable XML file. So that's a feature we also introduced last year. And I think we also merged it back to 23.1 and 24.1 and so on. So it's a feature that already exists, and many more features, especially for JobRouter e-invoice, are to come in the next couple of months or in the next version 25.2, because especially this year with the new regulations that you have to be able to you have to send e-invoices, you have to be able to process them. Of course, a lot more people are starting to use it. Even if we had this module for the last 10 years, only now people have really started using it en masse. So we are getting a lot of feedback, and we are also trying to include that feedback into our new JobRouter version that comes out in September. So that's for e-invoice. And the last topic, the big topic, technology. Usually that's maybe a bit of a boring topic for people. It's always last, and we're also always talking about, I know, updates of PHP and stuff. We will talk about it as well today, but it's a lot more interesting than it usually is, I can promise you. I think there's like 4 or 5 different topics in this category, and we are starting with performance. Performance is a challenge, I think, not just for the user who has to deal with performance issues. Of course, the experience, that's definitely a challenge, but also once you have performance issue, for the administrators and the support people, it's usually a real challenge to identify what is slow and why is it slow, especially if you are working on a production system at runtime, because as you know, performance issues never happen on a test system. They never happen on an empty system that you could easily debug. It always happens in a production system where you can't just shut down some services, replace some files, add some logging and such. So in the past, we really had a lot of issues when we were trying to analyze performance problems. So that's something that we tried to counter for 25.1 with a new feature, 2 new features actually. One is the option to debug performance issues at runtime with a specific debug level and debug log. So you can activate it separately from the actual JobRouter debugging. It's a specific debug log you can activate, and it will give you for specific actions in JobRouter, not for all of them, because we couldn't cover all of JobRouter with debugging and performance statistics. But we looked at the places where we had the most issues in the last couple of years. For example, opening inboxes, opening archive views. Those not usually, but oftentimes take a long time to load. Or opening steps, sending steps, log in, log out. Those were our main pain points in the last couple of years. And these we have covered with extra special performance logs. And you can activate debugging for them, and then you will get an extra log file just for that debugging. And we have a log viewer as well that will give you a bit more, because the debug log is a bit complex. It's meant for developers to look at. If you open a ticket and developers can take a look, they can tell from the log file where the issue is, hopefully. And that debug log comes with a log viewer as well that will highlight like the slowest execution times and so on. You can filter by username, you can filter by action. So it's a really good, hopefully, it's a really good option in the future if there are performance issues to help debug them. That's our plan. So that's the first point. The second point is about time tracking of execution times, because that's also something that we regularly get. that people come to us and they say, I know the login now takes longer than it took last week. People have reported it now takes longer than it took last week. It could be after an update. Then the issue is that you can't really go back to prove that the time really has increased. That's always the issues with those kinds of tickets. If they say it was fast, but now it's slow, you can't really, you don't have times. You'd have the times now, you don't have the previous times, you can't compare, which is really an issue. We never know when did it stop being fast, when did it start being slow. And for that, we now offer the option of time tracking for the exact actions I just mentioned, like opening steps, sending steps, log in, log out, opening inboxes and such. You can activate for like specifically for a specific step in a specific process or for a specific invoice or for not invoice, inbox. For all inboxes in a workflow, you can activate this time tracking, and it will give you every time someone then opens a box, it will give you the time, like, I don't know, 0.5 seconds. It will give you the JobRouter version at the time, the user at the time, some context maybe, and you will just have a log. It's stored in the database, a log of those times that you can then compare with times, for example, after a JobRouter update or after you added a new version of a process that maybe comes with a new form. You can compare times, old form, new form, what has changed. Or maybe, maybe sometimes you don't do anything and suddenly it's slow. It also happens. You can also pinpoint the exact time when, for example, the login suddenly started to take 10 seconds instead of 1 second. And you can then go back to your own IT department infrastructure and ask what happened at 9 o'clock yesterday morning. What could have happened to make this slower? So that's the second part that we have added now to 25.1, just to make it easier in the future if there are performance problems to get to the source of it, to actually identify the actual issue. It wasn't possible in the past, so we took those issues we had in the past and we added features for them. So hopefully in the future we will have it a bit more easier to identify those issues. That's the first point. Another one, I said I won't talk about PHP, but I actually do. PHP 8.3, it's actually a prerequisite for JobRouter 25.1. We have some libraries in there that only work with PHP 8.3, so you have to update. If you're still running with PHP 8.1, you have to update to PHP 8.3. The good thing is 24.1 and 24.4 can also be operated with, be operated with both versions. So if you're running 24.1 for now, for example, right now on PHP 8.1, you can update this to PHP 8.3. So just one update, not two updates, just one update. And then in the next couple of months or weeks, you can update to 25.1 and just keep the PHP. We tried to separate those two so that if you're doing a major update, you only have to do one of them, not both of them. That was the idea behind this. And PHP 8.4, just to mention it is also currently work in progress with us to supply you, to support this as well for JobRouter, because it has been released, I think, in November last year. The encoder and stuff that we need is already existing. Usually it takes a while until the source guardian encoder is supplied and so on, but these things already exist. We just have to test this a little bit in our own environments to see if there are any deprecations that we have to fix, any breaking changes in PHP 8.4. But our goal is to also in the next month or two provide you with PHP 8.4 as an option for JobRouter, because hopefully the opcache issue we currently have, that the opcache crashes with JobRouter sometimes, and it was supposed to be fixed with 8.3. We have received feedback from people who are using it. It's not fixed for them, 8.4 also has a bug fix in their list saying we fixed the op cache issue again. So hopefully our hope is with that 8.4 has now finally fixed the op cache issue. That's why we also want to provide it as quickly as possible for you, so that you can update your JobRouter to this version. As I mentioned, in the next month or two, but PHP 8.3 is already out and you can use it. What else have we done from a technology standpoint in the last months, basically, over the last year and in 25.1? Since we are also moving towards cloud, or we also notice that a lot of people, a lot of customers are moving towards cloud, not just with JobRouter, but also with their whole infrastructure and other systems that they are using in combination with JobRouter. We have added support for various cloud services last year, starting with Google. Google was kind of mandatory because Google can do it. Google just said, I will stop support for, I think, for normal authentication with username and password. They just said, we are not doing it anymore. From now on, you have to use the O authentication method to access your email accounts, to send emails, but also to import emails. So and they were quite insistent on shutting down the old authentication mechanism. So I think like in the middle of last year, we added support for Google OAuth for email import and sending emails, so that if you're using Google Workspace as your primary email provider, you can now use it also in combination with JobRouter. So that's the one thing, was done in the middle of last year. Another cloud service that we have integrated quite a short while ago in 25.1 is Microsoft Entra ID for user and job function synchronization. As you know, we were able, even before that, to, if you just wanted to log in using Microsoft Entra ID, you could already do it with SAML authentication. But question was, how can I actually import users from Microsoft Entra ID? Because if your company is moving from an Active Directory to the cloud, you really didn't have any chance to import users from this cloud into JobRouter, users and job functions. So in 25.1, we have added this support. So along with Active Directory and some other LDAP protocol functions, we now also support Microsoft Entra ID as a directory service where we can import and synchronize users and job functions. The functionality is still the same as it always was in JobRouter, just the provider for Microsoft Entra ID has now been added, and you can synchronize your users with the Microsoft Cloud service instead of the on-prem service. So that has been added in 25.1. What has also been added in 25.1, which is actually the highlight for many of us, at least from the development department and the cloud department and the support department, we have finally added Linux support for our JobRouter services. So Job Server, Job Activity, Job Runner, and such can now be operated on Linux, which means that the whole JobRouter system can now be operated on Linux. It was possible for the web application before that. I think for the last 3 or 4 years, since 5.0, I think, we were able to host the web application on the Linux system, but the services had still to be running on Windows, which means you had like a mixed infrastructure. And a lot of people, it actually prevented a lot of people to move to Linux, even if the advantages are quite clear. Like the Linux system, it's if you have everything on one system, of course, it's a more consistent IT infrastructure. You don't have a mixed infrastructure anymore. It saves costs. You don't have the licensing that you have to the Windows licenses that you have to buy. You have improved performance because Linux is faster for web applications. It doesn't matter so much for services. It still uses less resource than a Windows server would use. But especially for web applications, Linux is much, much faster to use than Windows with IIS. So now, hopefully, since the services are also running on Linux, you can have your whole system on Linux. Hopefully that will convince some of you to move your whole environment to a Linux environment. It will definitely help with performance. We haven't, for example, we haven't seen the op cache issue that we have with PHP. It's primarily a Windows issue. It doesn't show up on Linux. And in itself, it's also Linux is much more faster for web application. That's proven. So I can only recommend you if you have people in-house who have Linux knowledge and you haven't actually done it yet, see if you can move your infrastructure for JobRouter to Linux servers. Linux is also, this Linux service support was also the last step, basically, that we still needed to support JobRouter in containers. Or the operation of JobRouter, of the web application and the services in Docker containers. It's supported now internally. We are already using it internally. For our test environments, for the development environment, the cloud server, the cloud team is using it. So the containers are already there. They have been there since 24.4 actually. That's when we started. Every time a new JobRouter version is created, a container also comes out at the end of the pipeline. So we do have those containers. We are currently in internal testing because we don't have any experience running these containers in a live environment. They are, on principle, they are working, but in a live production environment where services are running 24/7, lots of people are working on it and such, we don't have any experience yet. We are trying to get that experience in the next couple of weeks and months before we officially release that to all of our partners and customers, because we want to be prepared. If tickets are coming in, if people are asking questions, we want to be prepared for you, for those questions, for those tickets. We want to make sure that all the, there's a name in German for this. It's basically called like children sicknesses. So we want to be sure that all of them are found by us and fixed before we actually release this officially. We will, in the next couple of weeks, we will start, or in, I think, July, we will start like a beta version so that people who have knowledge about containers and who want to try and see how JobRouter behaves in containers, they can already do like a beta test. They can take part in a beta test with us. We will, of course, also make sure that our academy supplies sufficient information, that our support team is sufficiently trained, that our professional service is sufficiently trained. We want to be really ready for everyone to use containers because it has so many advantages if you do. The official plan, if everything goes well, you know, if our internal tests go well and people are helping us with the beta tests, then we don't have any major findings. The plan is to actually release the containers with 25.2, which will be released in September. So that's the big goal we have for this year. As I mentioned, everything is ready. We just have to test and fix some small issues that we find on the way while we are testing. But the big idea is to release this year so that everyone can use containers. And just to give you an understanding of how this would work in a JobRouter context, and of course to also convince you how easy it actually is. I know that it's usually like a know-how issue, and not a lot of companies have Linux know-how or Docker know-how in their company, but I want to convince you that it's really worth it to build up that knowledge, to have people who understand how this works so that you can use containers in the future, because there are a lot of advantages of this. So let me switch to my JobRouter installation for now. Oh, I see I only have 13 minutes left, but I can do it. So just a quick one. I have Ranger Desktop running here as a Docker management system. It doesn't actually matter which system that you are using. Let me go here. Let me just start the containers quickly. So as you can see, we have 7 or 8 containers. I will open this here. It's with the user interface. So these are the containers that are currently running. We have decided to have one container for each service. So not one container for everything. It doesn't make sense to put everything into one container. A container also should give you the option to replace individual containers. If job server crashes, it shouldn't bring down all of JobRouter. You want to make sure that you have really separate entities, separate containers for separate services. So we decided to have one container per service: job activities, server, job document, job runner. We have one container for JobRouter itself, for the web application. Those are all Linux containers. None of them are Windows, all Linux containers. We have a container for RabbitMQ. We have a container for the database. And in the future, I think there will also be a container for Redis, for the caching. But that's the idea, that we have not just one container for everything, but individual containers for the individual components of JobRouter. So those are currently running, still running, perfect. So let me log into it's a local environment, my local JobRouter. So this is now running in a container environment. As you could see, it's currently JobRouter 25.1.0 beta 1. That's important because I want to show you how easy the update is as well. So that's the beta 1 of this JobRouter version. And as you can see, if I click here, it's a mostly empty system. So it's not the best system to prove to you how fast this JobRouter is. But even if I just click here, you can see how quickly the pages are changing, how quickly the menus are loaded. So this is one of the first advantage of this is there's a Linux system in the back end. So the web application is much faster than a Windows application. Let me log out quickly, because I want to show you how an update would look like in the future. Because an update, as you know it right now, you download a zip file from JobRouter, you extract the zip file, you make a backup of the original system, you copy and paste the files from the zip file. Depending on how fast your system is, it takes a couple of minutes because there's a lot of small files. You have to make sure that specific folders are not removed or replaced or overwritten, but some of them have to be removed before you install the new files. So there is a lot of things to do for an update, and a lot of mistakes that can be made. And in the future, it will simply be, I will stop them for now. Takes a couple of seconds to stop the services. But in the future, it will simply be an update in the configuration file of this system. I'm not going to go into detail here because it's basically how Docker is working. So the image I'm currently using, the version I'm currently using is basically this. That's the image from our Docker repository, which is not public, so don't try to download anything from this one. It's not going to work. But the image I'm currently using is the beta 1 image. So if I want to change to beta 2, or maybe from 25.1.0 to 25.1.1, you would just change the version of the image that you want to pull. Close this one, start the Docker containers again, which takes a minute. I've downloaded the version before. Usually it would also download the version, of course. I've downloaded it before so that it's a bit quicker. So this is still the old view, I think. As you could see here, it's 25.1.0 beta 1. If I refresh this page, it's 25.1.0 beta 2. It sometimes crashes. So that's one of the small children sicknesses we still have to fix. So this is running now. And if I log into JobRouter again, what's happening now is that it's doing it's recognizing there's a new version. It's doing the patch update that you are used to. That hasn't changed. The patch update still needs to run. The database changes and stuff that we do, it still needs to run. So this has now been updated. It's the new beta version down here. And if I log in, it's still the same JobRouter, of course, with all the data. And the version has been updated to beta 2. So in the future, hopefully, an update will simply be changing the version of the image that you want to have for your JobRouter. So, and that's it. So no more copying of files, no more installing services, updating services. Everything is done with just the Docker pull and Docker up, and that's it. And that's going to be your update in the future. And that's what's hopefully will convince you to move to containers, even if you don't have the knowledge right now, even if you don't have the people with Linux know-how, with Docker know-how. It's really worth it to invest in that knowledge, not just for JobRouter. Other applications are moving to Docker as well. But as you can see, it's really, it saves so much time to do a JobRouter update. Then it takes now if you do it manually, and it's really, I can only recommend you to build up that knowledge to use containers in the future, because it will make everyone's life really, really easy. And let me go back to my slides. Of course, that was the really quick demonstration of containers. More to come in the next couple of months, of course, and hopefully, if everyone is crossing their thumbs, by the release of 25.2, we will have containers officially provided for you. And that's it from my side. I have one more slide that I will let Stefan say something about. Should I switch already, or do you want to introduce it yourself?
Thank you very much. You can switch the slide.
Okay,
I
okay.
guess.
We have one more interesting thing to tell you.
There's one more very nice thing, to be honest. As you know, we have that feature voting board in our support portal where all of you are able, which have a login, to vote for specific features. And this one is a special one, not because it has 152 votes. It is basically because it's first place, the most wanted feature in our support portal that is done. In 2025.1, you are able to work in multiple designers. Before that, for those of you who are not familiar with that feature or feature request, is when you are opening designer for a specific process version and open a second one, the first tab, the first process you opened, you can't do any changes anymore. It tries to apply those changes to the second opened process, right? And with that feature implemented for 2025.1, you are able to work in multiple processes at the same time. There's also there's a side effect when implementing this. We moved the information in which process version you're currently into the URL of the designer. So you can basically now save that one as one of your favorites in your browser and can directly route to that process version, to that specific content. For example, you go into a specific form design or you go into database connections, whatever it is, you can save it as a favorite in your browser's list and directly get redirected to that navigation menu, provided you are logged in, of course. And you can't, of course, access any processes or process versions you don't have rights to open up. But it was very important for us to tell you about this good feature, or it is now the third feature which we implemented from our top 3. Basically, all the top 3 are now implemented, and we are quite happy that we have achieved this one, thanks to one of our developers who were really motivated end of last year to take this one on, and now we're happy to be able to ship it to you.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you very much. To be honest, it is my favorite feature too. I really struggled with it. We have few questions. Actually, most of them Stefan already answered in the chat. One was
Thanks,
also
Stefan.
about opcache, and I believe you already told about this error because the question was how you have you found any workaround for the opcache PHP error? I think the answer could be use Linux.
That's actually a good solution because so far we didn't have any tickets about Linux users who experienced this, and also the actual bug report in PHP also states it's a Windows issue. So Linux would be an alternative. 8.4, PHP 8.4 hopefully is an alternative. Yeah, those are the two options I think that we have that are most promising for now.
Yeah, good. And as I said, there were a few questions to containers, and the last one that hasn't been answered yet is besides Docker, also Podman, LXC, and OpenShift supported? Question mark. Do we support something
I
like
actually
that?
have to read this question.
Please do that.
Okay, I don't know because Docker is the container technology. I think if Podman supports Docker, then it should be possible. I haven't heard of Podman before and the other ones. So if they support containers based on a Docker logic, it should also work. But I have to take this question into the development team to see if they know what this means and if this is supported.
Okay, thank you. And I believe we have another thing in chat. Okay. You can see that probably here on me.
Oh, I see there's a clarification for
Yeah.
that question. My quick Googling possibilities told me that it should be possible to run Docker containers on those. We are also, as you've seen at Romy's laptop, we are not using Docker itself as well for running them on our desktop. We are using Ranger Desktop, which is also free to use as long as they're like supporting that Docker logic with the YAML file to start up the Docker images, you're good to go. But we didn't test it explicitly on those technologies, the Docker containers we're using. Previously, we also used Docker Desktop, but now all of us are running on Ranger Desktop. And for our cloud environment, we're using Kubernetes. So those are technologies we are familiar with. You're very welcome to also join in the beta tests to tell us if that works, of course. Thank you very much.
So there will be a notification that goes out, I guess. Once we are ready for beta testing and we have everything we need, there will be a notification that goes out for people to test, to give us feedback, and to tell us what we still need to do before this is actually production level ready.
Perfect. So thank you very much. I have a few more slides to share, and then we will finish today's webinar. So first of all, information for all the participants. You will shortly receive an email with all the slides as PDF file from today's webinar, as well as link to the recording of this webinar. I believe it is something that could be interesting for you to check afterwards or share with the colleagues. Another thing is we encourage you to subscribe to our corporate newsletter to get all the information about the following webinars, documents that we have, events, any news that we have. So please, you can use this QR code, but of course, if you watch us on your phone screen, you can just use the links that I shared in the chat. One more thing before we go, it is, of course, if you have any feedback to this webinar or you still have some questions that were not you haven't put to the chat and you still want to get an answer, just write to me. Here you can see my email address. Again, you will have these slides as PDF, so you can see this email address there as well. Just write me and I will answer to you or check with colleagues if it is some more technical topics. And what else I can say is, of course, thank you for your participation today in our today's webinar, and we are actually looking to see you tomorrow. I already shared the link to these webinars that we have tomorrow in the chat before, but I'm doing that right now as well. We will speak about use cases, as it was mentioned previously. We will have some interesting things from different industries, and as well presentation of JobMind PowerShift. So please join us tomorrow and have a nice evening or day, or depending on where you are right now. Thank you.
Have a nice evening.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.